Hi, I'm Andy Powell. Welcome to the Purpose Project. All topics are fair game. I hope you enjoy. So you are Esther Basch.
Right,
You're also known as the honey girl of Auschwitz,
right.
and we'll find out why.
Okay,
You were born May 28th, 1928,
right,
which makes
Yes.
you 96.
right. I'll be 97 soon.
97 soon. Wow. And you were born in Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, well, actually, you see, it was in the Carpathian Mountains, in the same house that my mom was born. It was Hungary. And then when I was born in 1928, it was Czechoslovakia. And then in 1938, the Hungarians came back. And in 1942, the Nazis took over the town, and that was the end of the Jewish population.
Now, if I remember right, there's a story where you ran into the Nazis before 1942.
And
Well,
Kizzy.
yeah, they were actually Hungarian Nazis. They were also very cruel. They didn't show their faces until the Nazis came in. And then all of a sudden we're dirty Jews.
Mom, I think he's talking about the story of Aunt Gizzy. Your Aunt Gizzy.
Oh, and Gizzy, are
Yes.
you talking about that?
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You lived with Aunt
Okay.
Gizzy.
No, she was
So you
visiting.
see, she loved me very, very much. So much that she used to come to our house, take me to her house, which was like 2 cities after mine. And I was there a whole summer. She loved me so much, and I loved her. And do I tell the story?
Yeah.
And so I must have been maybe 9 or 10 years old when I went in the vacation time to her house. She had 2 daughters, but they were playing outside, but I didn't want to leave my aunt. So I was sitting next to her couch. I mean, like on the couch next to her. Then all of a sudden these Hungarian Nazis came in and wanted their taxes, their tax money.
They were there to collect
Yeah,
tax money.
Yeah. And my aunt says, I don't have a penny, nothing. My husband is in Israel, Palestine then, and he's trying to save some money to send us so we could go to Israel. So I don't have a penny. So this Nazi says, okay then, I'll take that pillow. She was holding on to a pillow very strongly because her son embroidered it for her. So it was very dear to her, and she's holding on to it. And this Nazi, by force, takes it away from her. And she was so upset that she got a heart attack. She fell over my lap, and she died instantly.
And you were 9 or 10 years old.
Something like that.
Wow.
I started to scream. I didn't know what happened. I'm telling her, Aunt Gizzy, please get up. And Gizzy doesn't answer. So I was screaming till the two of her daughters came in and they saw what happened. I don't know how, but they contacted my mom, and she came right away and took me and the 2 sisters to our house. They were there for like maybe 2-3 years.
Now, were the sisters about the same age as you?
No, they were like 3-4 years older than
Okay,
me.
so still young.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Was it normal at the time for Hungarian Nazis to, or anybody to come collect taxes like that?
Well, we didn't know they're Hungarian Nazis until the Nazis came in. So we called them we called them a kokostare. That means, not the hand, goose, have those big feathers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because that's why they were wearing, a hat with all those feathers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Hungarian it's called kokostare.
So after that, you went back to live with your mom.
Right.
And how far away was that?
Well, I had to be like 9, 10 years old, and when the real Nazis came into the house, to my town, I was 14 years old.
Mm-hmm. And you went back with your mom, and then the real Nazis came in 1942.
Yes, and that was unbelievable. My father was a rabbi. He had this long beard. They started pulling on his beard until blood was coming out and beating us mercilessly. I had some nice Christian friends, but when the Nazis came in, all of a sudden I'm a dirty Jew. I didn't understand at age 14 how I was clean yesterday and today I'm dirty. And it went on like that for a long time, for 2 years, until the Nazis decided to make a ghetto, a 4-street square, where they put all the Jewish people from the town and from the vicinity. They put us into the ghetto. But before they did that, they told us to take a suitcase and all our pillows and quilts, and they took us to the main synagogue in my hometown. When we got in, the Nazis took all the pillows and quilts, tore it open. The synagogue became like a snowstorm. I still have nightmares from that. It was horrific.
Why did they want to destroy the pillows and blankets?
Because they thought that maybe we had some money or jewelry.
Oh.
So they tore it open.
So they were just looking for valuables.
Yes.
I see. And so they took all the Jewish people in that town and then combined them into one small area.
Yes.
Which became kind of like a prison.
Like one house was like 5 families. My parents and I, we were only the 3 of us. But some people had like a half a dozen children, even more. So we were crammed into one house with 5 families. And this went on for 6 weeks. It just so happens that the house that they put us in was right across from our house. We were watching how the Christian neighbors were taking all our belongings, our cow, goat, we had chicken and geese. That was the neighbors from the right. But the neighbors from the left, he came out in the middle of the night to call out my father's name so he can throw a piece of bread over the fence. If he would have been caught, he would have been shot on the spot. But he risked his life because he knew we were starving. No food, no water.
Did he do that once, or did he continuously do that?
No, a few times.
A few times you did that?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
And so no food, no water for a long time.
6 weeks.
No water for 6 weeks?
Hardly any water.
They gave you enough just to stay
Still-
alive.
Yeah, just to stay alive.
Wow.
Exactly. And after 6 weeks, they decided to, excuse me. So anyways, after 6 weeks, they decided to put us on a train. It was actually a cattle car. We had to walk from this house to the train station, which was at least 2-3 miles from our house.
And your house at this time, when they made that ghetto, this is still considered Czechoslovakia back then.
No, by that time it was Hungary.
Oh, it changed.
Yes.
Okay.
The Hungarians came back in 1942, in 1938.
Okay.
It depended on which dictator was in charge,
Okay.
because right now it's the Ukraine.
Yeah.
The same place.
Modern day.
Right. So it just kept switching based on that.
Which is
And
that.
Mom never really learned much Czechoslovakian, although she was born in Czech. But the family all talked Hungarian.
Okay.
Hungarian or Jewish.
Okay.
Yiddish.
Yiddish.
Yiddish, not Hebrew.
No, Yiddish is the language that a lot of Jews know.
Okay.
Wherever they're
In
from.
Europe
It's
especially.
yeah,
I see.
yeah.
Okay, so today.
Hebrew is a whole. It sounds nothing like it. At
Yeah.
all.
Okay. So today that would be Vinograd, Ukraine.
Yes.
That your house
You see,
is in.
vinograd is grapevines. So in Hungarian it was called nagyszőlős, which is also grapevines. And when the Czechs came in, it was velký szevlus, which is also, it's the grapevines, because the Carpathian Mountains, it was full of grapevines. I used to climb the mountains, take some grapes, and
You just
Yeah.
find them all over the place.
it was fun.
At
I had a
96, she's
wonderful-
finally not a tomboy,
Yeah,
but her whole life she was.
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe it, but I was a tomboy.
Right on. Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys were pushed into the ghetto across from your house. Your dad was a rabbi. He was being hurt. And then the neighbors that were on your left brought him bread, risking their life.
Yes.
And then one day they decided they're going to put you all on a cattle train car
Yes.
and
yes.
move you to where?
Well, we didn't know where we were going. We were 500 people in one cattle car that we didn't have room to sit down or anything. If somebody died, we had to hold him up because there was no room for him to lay down. And it went on for days and days. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing 5-6 days.
You were on that train car for 5 or 6 days?
Yes. I was holding so strongly hands with my mom because she was crying that she hid from the Nazis 1 egg or 2 a week so she could make me a birthday cake. It never happened. On my 16th birthday, I got off the train at Auschwitz on my birthday. They took threw my father right away to the right, which later finding out, straight to the gas chambers. I was still holding hands very strongly with my mom when a Nazi came, tore our hands apart by force, threw my mom to the right also, and they took me to a barrack. And do I pronounce that right?
Barrack, yes, but
Yeah.
I always tell you, you don't talk much about that cattle car. And
because
It
it was
sounds
very
like-
horrific.
I
Very
mean, there was no
horrific.
bathroom. There
If
was
you,
no
yeah. If you had
anything.
to go to the bathroom, you
where
just
you
went.
stood. The foul odor, the inhumanity,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were 500 people smushed into
Yeah.
one.
like sardines.
And how many of those people passed away on the journey?
Couple of them, if you. Yeah. And it was a very sad situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was horrific
So then the train arrives
at Auschwitz.
at Auschwitz. And your father is taken
Right away was thrown to the right.
and
And
went.
then I was still holding strongly hands with Mom when a Nazi came, tore our hands apart, threw my mom to the right too.
Mom,
Never
was it
saw
a
them
Nazi
again.
or a capo or a Jewish capo that tore you apart?
No, it was a Nazi.
It was a Nazi.
The Jewish capos were in the barracks,
Now,
and they were so mean, sometimes even more mean than the Nazis, because they wanted to please the Nazis for an extra piece of bread. So they were just so cruel.
yeah.
And we had to stay in line morning and night to be counted. And many of us went to the barbed wire, which was with electricity. They didn't want to suffer anymore.
So they killed themselves by
Yeah.
touching the barbed wire,
Right.
the electric fence.
Exactly. So until they found them, we had to stay for hours and hours till they found them. In fact, many times I was so tortured, I had to kneel on rocks until blood was coming and being beaten mercilessly. So I went to the barbed wire. I didn't want to suffer anymore. But when I got to the barbed wire, wanting to touch it, my parents' faces came in front of me, and I couldn't touch it. What if they're alive and I'm not?
So you wanted to kill yourself,
Yeah.
and your
It was-
parents,
Yeah.
the hope
I-
that your parents were still alive,
Right.
prevented you from doing that.
This is why I believe in God very, very strongly. I feel that He put them in front of me. He had other plans for me.
Yeah, he did.
So
I'm
To
I'm
meet
glad he
such a
did.
handsome man.
she's a big flirt, if I didn't tell you.
Thank you. No, I wasn't aware of this. I would have done my hair or something if I knew.
But going back to the count, the Germans were particularly meticulous about numbers. Had to add up, had to match. So not only those that died on the fence, but if someone died in the barracks during the night, if
And-
somebody, any unaccounted had to be counted for.
So is Auschwitz big geographically? Is it a large
Yeah,
area?
it was big, but you see, we were in one. Well, there must have been maybe 10 or 20 barracks. It was called the Seelager.
How many people in one building of barracks?
Oh, hundreds and hundreds.
Oh,
They were bunk beds, which was like 3 stories high,
okay.
and in each bunk bed was 12 women.
Yeah, it wasn't actually
Being pushing-
the way I see it, and from films I've seen. It's a pallet that they built 3 stories high,
Okay.
and so that still 12 people did not belong on one of these. She says they pushed each other all night. They couldn't get comfortable enough to go to sleep.
Was there a pad or a mattress?
Nothing.
Nothing, just solid wood.
Just solid wood.
Okay.
You can do this, Andy.
We'll see. I feel my cry clock is ticking. But,
So
So then, if it's a big area, as soon as you got there, you said your father was taken straight to the gas chambers.
Right.
Now, were the barracks close to the gas chambers, or are they far away?
Yeah, they were close. We saw the chimneys smoking.
So you can see when people are being killed in the gas chambers.
You know, one day, there was this angel of death, they called him, Mengele.
Yeah, Dr. Yosef.
Yeah, Joseph
Mengele.
Right. So he was walking on the lines and take out whomever he felt, whether to experiment or the gas chambers. One day he's standing in front of my line. I was standing in line with 4 sisters from my hometown. The youngest was my best friend. And so as we're standing in line, and Mengele comes in front of our line, and he had this horrible silver cane that he pointed at the woman whom he wanted to take out. And it looked to me that he's pointing at me. So I stay out of the line. He takes that horrible cane and pushes it into my belly button and pushes me back to the lane. Sometimes I still have nightmares from that. It hurts my belly, my belly button. And so pushes me back and takes out my best friend. When we got back to the barrack, this mean capo calls out, "Is there any family that was taken away?" And the 3 remaining sisters says, "Yes, our little sister was taken away." And this mean capo points towards the gas chamber and says, "You see the chimney smoking? That's where your little sister is." I still have guilt feeling because I thought I was supposed to be there. And so it went on for 3.5 months, tortured mercilessly. And until they decided to take women to labor camps. You see, the barracks had no door.
Mm-hmm.
So they put an incredibly heavy barrier towards the door. They left a little opening, and they looked at us, and whomever they felt could go to work pushed them in, and whom not pushed them away. In the meantime, I befriended a very nice woman, 2 years older than I, and we became like sisters. So they pushed my so-called sister,
Helen
was her name,
Helen.
into the barrack, and they pushed me away, which later finding out straight to the gas chamber. I didn't know what was happening, but I was standing there and crying and crying. Now I lost my so-called sister too. As I was standing there and crying, all of a sudden this incredible heavy barrier fell over, and the Nazis, of course, disappeared, and I snuck in. That's why I don't have a tattoo.
So you snuck in with the group that was being taken to a labor camp.
But
Not
in the
knowing.
meantime,
Not knowing where they were going?
no, nothing.
Why did the Nazis push you away?
Because they looked at me. After 3.5 months, I was like a skeleton.
Yeah.
And because many times for weeks I didn't even have that piece of bread, because a woman, I was crying for my mom, and she said, "Esther, I know where your mom is. If you'll give me your piece of bread, I'll take it to her." So I was starving for at least 2-3 weeks until a couple saw us and beat her up mercilessly and hollered at me, "Don't you know your mom is not alive anymore?" I really still didn't want to believe it,
Yeah.
but I didn't give that woman the bread anymore.
A couple of clarifying questions. But early on, before you were put on the train to Auschwitz, right after the Germans came, they made you guys wear a Star of
A
David.
yellow Star of
I have
David.
one in the car.
You have one in the car. And this was for the purpose of identifying that you're Jewish.
yeah.
Is that right?
You see, they put me on a yellow Star of David next day. I go to school, and the teacher looks at me with the yellow star. She hollers out, "You're a dirty Jew. Get out of my class. Jews not allowed to have higher education." I didn't even finish my 8th grade. I went home crying. I actually liked school. I loved history. And so,
Wow. Now, you might be able to answer this for me. They were deciding who was Jewish based on lineage rather than practice?
If you had a great-grandfather that was Jewish and you perceived yourself as Christian by this time, if they found a
you
drop of
still
blood,
went to Auschwitz.
you went to
Okay.
Auschwitz. If
Okay.
there was any Jewish link whatsoever.
And how could they identify that?
Records, just,
Personal family
Yeah.
items, stuff like
No,
that?
there was records in the,
but they also got help from German citizens.
Yeah, neighbors or something like
Neighbors
that.
And they were bribed to give up this information.
Yeah.
And you know what? As much as you'd like to think you know what you would do when you're starving, you don't.
Yeah,
You don't.
yeah.
We don't judge. I mean, it's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you were in Auschwitz and you would get bread every so often or water, now,
Yeah, well, we got a piece of bread every day, and we got a cup of coffee in the morning because they put in some pills not to have,
not to menstruate.
yeah.
For the women, I mean, what they have done. So they were given something in their morning coffee to prevent menstruation.
oh, wow. Okay, so then they gave you coffee every day
Yeah,
and a piece of bread every day.
yes.
And was this a big piece of bread? Was it like
Nah.
something you could fit in your hand?
Yeah, little piece, like something like that.
And bread
My mom
was
is convinced that one of the ingredients was sawdust.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's how it tasted.
yeah.
It was so horrible, but I couldn't eat it for days. But then I decided if I'm not gonna eat it, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
So I ate it, but it was, oof.
And there was no other food that you were given during that time.
Wasn't there like a soup with potato peels, or that was already?
Well, once in a while they gave us a little soup, which was so bad the animals could have it.
Oh,
You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? It
Yeah.
was so horrible. But then, when we went to the labor camp, it was better.
how long were you in Auschwitz before you snuck out?
3.5 months.
3.5 months. And how much longer would you have to be there in order to have gotten tattooed?
No, you see, they tattooed a woman that they were taking to labor camp before they took them. They had tattoos, but as I say, I snuck in,
Yeah.
so they didn't count me. But then I went to another labor camp.
And you the first labor camp that you went to. So you sneak out. The wall falls over. You sneak out and follow your friend. They didn't notice that you were following them.
You see, when this barrier fell over, the Nazis disappeared.
They scattered. You know that.
Oh.
So I snuck in. But in the meantime, my so-called sister was taken away to another labor camp, and I was taken to a different labor camp.
What was the name of it, Mom?
Of the labor camp? Fallersleben. Fallersleben.
I'm guessing F-A-L-L.
Fallersleben.
E-R-S-L-A-B-E-N. Laban means work, doesn't it?
No, Leben means life.
Oh.
Fallersleben. And what kind of work did you do there?
I was working in an ammunition factory, which we worked 12 hours a day. Every 2 weeks the shifts changed, and we worked 24 hours. I was so exhausted that I soldered, you see, I was soldering handles to mines that they throw in the ocean to explode. Many times I soldered the handles to my fingers in the mines, so I have no fingerprints.
When they had switched and had 24-hour shifts, she would fall asleep while welding.
Oh, and you'd
So
burn
I
your fingers that
soldered
way.
My fingers. I have no fingerprints. In the United States was kind enough to give me a visa anyways. I could have been a criminal of all they know.
Well,
Yeah.
well, there's a yeah. That's wild. Can I see your fingers? Can I look at your fingers?
No fingerprints.
Yeah.
Crazy,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's certain criminals back in the earlier decades of the 1900s would try and use acid or burn off their fingerprints so that they could continuously commit crimes without getting caught.
Right.
Wow. So before you went to the labor camp, I want to talk about the difference between being at Auschwitz and being at the labor camp.
Oh, it was quite different.
So it was better at the labor camp?
Much better.
Were
We
you
had
fed
our-
more?
We had our own bunk bed, not to have to share it with 12 women.
Just for one person? You had your own?
I had my own bunk bed. They even gave us a pillow and a blanket. Not in Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And they gave us a decent clothing, too.
Oh, she didn't mention what they were given to wear in Auschwitz.
Oh, one piece of clothing or a underpants or a shirt or a pants. I was wearing a pair of underpants which was from like a 300-400 pounds woman. So it was up to my knees over my,
So you were fully clothed, more or less,
so to speak,
compared to some other people who got just a shirt or something.
or a pants. Or, yeah.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that the people in Auschwitz, you guys were tortured.
Yes,
Now-
mercilessly.
What would they do, aside from the obvious, which is no food, no water, horrible living conditions?
We had to kneel on rocks till blood was coming out.
2 times a day.
They trained their dogs to tear people apart, and we had to watch it.
German shepherds
German shepherds.
were taught
I couldn't have.
human blood, and they would have to watch this punishment.
I was terrified of dogs for years and years. None of my children could have dogs, but When they left the house, they all had dogs. Yeah. One day I got very, very sick, and my son, my older son, may he rest in peace, bought a little puppy. And he calls me up, Mom, I would love to come and see you, but I just bought this little puppy. Can't leave her home alone. I'm gonna hold her in my lap. I says, well, I wanted to see my son. I says, okay. He comes, sits in the end of the couch where I was laying, and this little puppy puts out her tongue. And my son says, Ma, this was a kiss.
Yeah.
Really? Try to give her a little pet, see what she's gonna do. I tried shakily from a little puppy, trying to give her a little pet, and she puts out her tongue again. And Mark says, Ma, Dinah loves you. I says, really?
Yeah.
She was in a Springer
Give her
Spaniel.
another pet.
Say again.
A Springer Spaniel.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
I
is.
gave her another pet, and before I knew it, I fell in love with her.
Yeah.
I used to take her to the park. You
And
know,
So that relationship with that dog helped you overcome the fear of
I
dogs.
don't have any more nightmares about dogs.
Good.
I have other nightmares, but not about dogs.
Mm-hmm.
She got me out of the nightmares.
Yeah.
And one day, his veterinarian calls up, and she says, Mark, they're giving out awards for dogs who did something good. The Dinah did something good, and my son says, well, the only thing I know she did, my mom is a Holocaust survivor, and she got her out of a lot of nightmares about dogs.
Yeah.
So she sent us tickets to Las Vegas. They were giving out awards like about a dozen dogs. Dinah got the award Wonder Dog of the Year.
That's awesome. Well deserved.
You should know that in the competition, there was a dog that had gone into the house. The kid was in the pool and got in the house and grabbed the mother and dragged her to the pool and saved the baby.
Wow.
But Dinah got Wonder Dog of the Year.
Beat that dog out on the awards list.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So, so with German shepherds in Auschwitz,
Yeah.
they would
Taking people apart.
just let them
Yeah.
go
yeah.
tear
It
people
would
up.
encourage them. Not,
Yeah. But
They
it
know
wouldn't.
how to train them like that.
But would it be specific people? Like they call out specific
No,
people
no,
for it, or they just
no.
let them go do it, or like the dog could go attack whoever
Yeah.
it wants.
Right.
Okay, and going back to Yusuf Mengele, now he was in charge of the experiments that the
Yes.
Nazis were doing.
Anybody is interested in a profile of a sociopath, of pure evil,
Yeah,
that was
That's
Joseph
him.
Mengele. They need to look him up to
That's
even
Mengele.
contemplate. His favorite subjects were twins.
right. Okay, so he was that guy.
He was that guy.
Okay,
Yeah.
And she faced him face to face.
This is why I believe in God so strongly. If not for God, I wouldn't be here. I'm not religious anymore, but I love God. I love all people, regardless of race or religion. I forgive. I think positive, and I have a happy life.
The forgiveness part seems to be something that people stumble over.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine. Would I forgive? I'd have been dead in the first 10 minutes of war. No two ways about it. And of course, if Mom hadn't survived, I wouldn't be here. My daughter wouldn't be here. my son, my grandkids, you know.
Yeah.
My great grandkids.
Yeah.
We are now 4 generations of
Here in
Basch.
Prescott.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Prescott is happy to have you, I think.
Oh.
So
You know?
now when it comes to forgiveness, there's a question I
Yeah.
had.
You see,
Worry
when
about that.
Steven Spielberg made that movie Schindler's Nest, he sent all this all the money.
He funded.
Yeah. From people from Hollywood to Holocaust survivors who wants to make a tape of their life. My husband and I made a tape, which is in the Washington Holocaust Museum. And when the woman finished my story, she says, Esther, how do you feel about the Germans today? I says, well, I cannot forget the horror they put me through, but I can forgive. Because if I don't forgive, if I hold a grudge, I only hurt myself.
Yeah.
This woman from Hollywood hugged me, telling me I was the first Holocaust survivor to answer her question the way I did. But I believe it.
Do you think other Holocaust survivors carry around that burden of
My
unforgiveness?
father did.
Oh,
did?
yeah.
My father was very angry.
see.
Didn't allow himself happiness. It's a horrible thing, but he carried his experience on his back all of his life.
Yeah.
I'm going to say in the last couple of years he loosened up a little, but I think that anger and hate was like a cancer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and ate him up.
Yeah.
You know, I can only speak from very far away from this
Yeah.
this experience, but
Yeah, he had entirely different childhood.
yeah.
I had loving parents. My husband, his mom died when he was 40 years old, and his father went to a matchmaker. He had 2 kids, 2 boys. He wanted to get married again. So he goes to this matchmaker that brings a woman, and my father-in-law says, well, I have 2 boys, 2 and 4. And this woman says, oh, I love children. Soon as they got married, she said, I can only take care of 1 boy. The older one has to go. So my husband was thrown from aunts to uncles, whoever wanted to take him in. So he really didn't have a childhood. He had to work. He was 9, 10 years old, 12 years old, while all his friends were playing on the street. He had to work, had to avoid, what do you call it?
I thought that he worked in his uncle's toy store or something. No?
Dad,
In his uncle's toy store?
also in the toy store and
Chop wood.
chopped wood.
Anything he could do for money.
Very hard life. Very, very hard.
Yeah, he did. He had a
childhood.
difficult life.
Yeah.
And
He
then,
didn't, yeah.
and then he was in slave labor
Yeah.
for the army, for the German army, the Russian
Actually,
army,
The Hungarian
or
army.
the Hungarian army.
Yeah,
My father
but-
was born in Romania,
Okay.
and they put him in slave labor. I have those interviews she was talking about, the Spielberg interviews. And the one thing you immediately notice about my father is the flatness of his words, of his face, of his expression. He was so careful not to let even a drop of it out. I mean, he's describing absolutely the most horrific torture that I could imagine, and he's saying it as though he's talking about the weather.
Yeah.
He was describing at one point he went out into the woods to try to get some of the lice off his body, and they caught him. He wasn't supposed to be there, and they strung him up by his wrists tied behind his back.
Yeah.
And then he would pass out. They would lower him. The doctor would check his heartbeat and say he couldn't go another. And they would pull him up again. I mean, pure torture.
Yeah.
Pure torture.
Yeah.
And my father's telling this like I'm talking to you. Like there's no
Yeah.
expression.
You know, he didn't know about love till he met me. You know,
In
he
that
was
2 hour-
23 years old.
How old?
23.
23.
23. So even his parents' love, he didn't know about that
No.
before then.
Nothing.
No. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. It's a
Yeah.
lot. I'm a walking history book.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. I'll probably have a whole other set of questions
Oh my
for you.
God.
The amount of research I imagine you've done is
I have.
ridiculous.
I have.
And he was very, very strict with his children because he was brought up so strict.
Yeah.
All I had to do was saying to the children, just wait till your dad comes home.
To get back to kind of the chronological order
Right.
of your life, you had gone to the ammunition factory and were working there. You have your own bunk, which with a blanket and
You see,
pillow.
there was two buildings. One building was where we lived, so to speak, and one building was the factory.
And so every day you'd
Yeah,
go over there.
every day we had to be counted.
Oh, still.
Still.
Okay.
But 500 women is easy to count.
Yeah, Auschwitz held thousands of women.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was huge.
So the entire camp of Auschwitz is waiting for the entire camp to be accounted
Right,
for
to be counted.
Exactly.
It
while
took
waiting on
hours
your
and
knees.
hours. Whether it was thunder or lightning or the sun was burning us, we had to stay in line.
Okay.
It's only the last couple of years that Mom doesn't run and hide in the corner of the closet when it thunders.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And sometimes I'm still shaking. And Rachel says, Ma, God is laughing. Okay.
That's
If
great.
God is laughing, I'm going to try to laugh too.
I
It
was
doesn't always work.
She does definitely have PTSD.
Yeah.
How could she not?
Well, that is another road that I will refrain from going down. The comparison of who or what PTSD is. There are different levels of that, I think. Now, with the thunder, my son actually was pretty scared of thunder. So what I would tell him is that God's talking to us,
Oh,
Yeah.
look
I'm
at
not
that.
original.
and
huh?
he liked
That's
that.
funny.
So
That's
he likes
very-
thunder now. So
Yeah. Maybe he could talk to my mother.
oh, she would love that.
I
She would-
love that.
He would love it too.
I just love children.
Yeah.
You know, in Phoenix, I don't know if you ever heard of Crisis Nursery.
Crisis Nursery? No.
Yeah, it's a place where the state takes away children that are being abused by parents. And they take them there in a place, but they have volunteers. I volunteered for 12 years, 3 times a week.
How she did it is beyond me because what she would see there was as horrifying.
I'll never forget one baby. We weren't supposed to change him or feed him, but the staff was very busy,
Yeah.
and a baby is crying,
Got to be done.
so I had to pick him up, and I smell him. So I decided to change his diaper. I take off his diaper. He was a black baby. His little black testicles were so burned.
Burned?
The
Cigarette
father was a sadist. And
It's
he
hard to hear, I
enjoyed
know.
when the baby was screaming. That's why he was took away the baby.
Yeah, he's still in
And
jail.
he's
I'm
still
sure.
in jail. He's still in jail.
That's good. That's good for him.
Yeah.
But how she put herself in that position is beyond me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I started
Well,
to cry. I was so upset.
I would
So
just-
one of the staff came to me and said, listen, we're not supposed to tell why the children are here, but I see how upset you are, so I have to tell you that the father did this and he's still in jail, remember? I remember.
I can imagine that going to spend time with those infants that are abused
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I imagine you can do it because you've experienced such pain and such suffering that you understand that the child. You can empathize with the child and you can give them
I
love.
used to pick him up and feed him and put him to sleep, rocking him, singing him Hungarian lullabies. The staff was laughing their heads off.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, in the Holocaust, what would happen to the children or the babies? Did people ever have babies in the Holocaust?
Oh, no.
Not
nothing.
because of the coffee.
If you were pregnant, you went straight to the gas chamber.
You were killed if you were pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then when the Nazis would round up people to take them to concentration camps, what would they do with the children?
Put them to the gas chambers right away.
Because they had no use for them as far as labor?
As far as, yeah, I guess, I don't know.
The one thing that all survivors have in common are miracles, several miracles, as you can tell by Mom's story. And
Yeah,
so,
that's why I believe in God so strongly.
yeah, he saved her on several occasions regarding the work camp. So they would have to line up with these metal dishes to get some soup.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, should I tell him about Ilonka? Yeah, so we had to stay still to be counted, but only 500 women, and to have our meal. See? So we're standing in line one day, and a woman stands in front of me, and I see her bowl is already dirty. So I says to her, Ilonka, you already ate. She says, yes, but I'm still hungry. And we're arguing back and forth in Hungarian till a Nazi came. She didn't know what we were arguing about, but she beat me up so bad that I had to crawl back into my bunk bed. I couldn't get up next morning, but we had a good couple in the labor camp who saw that I can't get up. She went to work for me so they could be counted, you see? Because if not, they would come and look for me and take me straight to the gas chambers.
Another miracle.
So she saved my life.
So
Yeah.
the Nazi, when you were arguing with Ilonka,
Yeah,
it was a female Nazi that came in and beat you.
yeah.
Were there a lot of female Nazis?
I'm sorry.
Were there a lot of female Nazis?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were soldiers. They
Yeah.
had soldier uniforms. And so, yeah.
So this was this at the first labor camp, the ammunition factory?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how long were you at Auschwitz?
3.5 months.
And then how long were you at this labor camp?
9.5 months.
9.5 months. So you're just
Yeah.
over a year.
Yeah. So until the American soldiers started coming forward, so they took us on a Death March, they called it, because many of us died on the road. No food, no water, just walking for days until we wound up in another labor camp, which was called Salzwedel.
Salzwedel?
Yeah,
Salzwedel.
yeah.
Salzwedel.
Vader, Salzwedel.
Uh-huh.
So they locked us in there for 2 weeks.
Tell him about the death march
Yeah.
first.
So
I
you
told her.
were
I told him.
you marching from one labor camp to the
To
other?
the other, right.
How long would that take?
It took days. We couldn't count the days.
Did you stop to sleep?
Nope.
You sure, Mom?
No, I don't think so.
You don't remember?
Just walking and
Just
walking.
And people would drop off, which
Yeah.
is why it was called a death,
Death
march.
march.
Yeah, that's why it's called the Death March.
I see.
And so finally wound up in Salzwedel. They locked us in for 2 weeks and disappeared. And this is where I found my so-called sister, Helen. We were very, very happy, but, there was hardly any food. She actually saved a little food, so we shared it. So that was wonderful. And this was like for 2 weeks when the American soldiers came, shut open the gate, and said, "You are free." We huddled together, again, uniforms. We didn't understand a word they said until they found us a Jewish soldier that told us in Jewish, "You are free. And go into town and take whatever you like."
What did it feel like when you heard those
Oh
words?
my God, it was amazing. So I went into town. I didn't want anything. I thought I'm going home, find everything. My parents didn't know what happened to them. But I picked up a big, big jar of honey.
Which seriously gets bigger every time she tells a story. I can picture her with a wagon with a barrel in it, carting it back to camp.
That's great.
Licked it up with my fingers. I got deadly ill by the time I got back to the camp. So they took me to the infirmary. I was there for like 6 weeks. Didn't know what happened to me. Nothing. But they called me, the soldiers, the honey girl, because I got sick from the honey. Years and years and years later. You want to tell the story?
Okay, so about
Were you-
17 years ago.
Yeah.
Were you were in a coma during that time, is that right?
Yes, I didn't know what happened to me.
And you went into a coma from getting sick?
Well,
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
put sugar in a body that hasn't had any for 13 months,
okay.
and an overdose of sugar.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That
yeah,
makes sense.
It totally whacked her out. Anyway, 17 years ago, my daughter wanted my husband, myself, my grandchild to go watch the fireworks on the 4th of July. So we did that in Chino Valley. It was lovely, that patriotism and just the feeling of everything's going to be okay. So my 2-year-old granddaughter's sitting in the stroller and watching and listening. And all of a sudden, tears are running down her face. She's not crying. She's touched. I mean, it was so obvious. She didn't need to be changed. She wasn't hungry. She wasn't tired. She was moved. So next morning, I tell my mother on the phone about this. And she proceeds to say, "Did I ever tell you about my first 4th of July?" Well, it turned out that her experience was the same as Jasmine's. She was moved to tears over a language she didn't understand, the beer and the fireworks and the music and the whole 4th of July thing which she was
I-
foreign to
I
her,
had tears
but
in
she was
my
moved
eyes.
to tears.
So you didn't know what 4th of July was
No,
when
but-
you experienced
Yeah,
it.
you see, the soldiers liberated us April 14th of 1945, but they were there until September. But they celebrated 4th of July. I had no idea.
But it affected you.
Yeah, emotionally.
Yeah.
I was very emotional.
Oh,
Isn't
so
that crazy?
that's amazing. So after you came out of a coma, what happened? Where'd you go? What did you do?
Well, we were in, you see, when the soldiers liberated us, they took us from the labor camp into the building, to a building where the Nazis lived. It was very comfortable and it was wonderful.
So you got a real bed
Yeah.
and real
yeah.
food.
Yeah, yeah. They fed us, oh my God, 3 times a day. And 3 times a day they gave us tapioca pudding because they felt that's going to put a little flesh on our bones. We were like skeletons.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Was there any person that you were with from the beginning to the end? Anybody from your village? So you were separated from everybody
Yes.
at one point.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
So, the 4th of July story.
Yeah.
Mom tells me, she said, did I ever tell you about my first 4th of July? I said, no. And she proceeded to paint this picture for me in my head. And she ends it with, I would give anything to be able to thank one of those soldiers that liberated us. So I started a search, and I was able to find a reunion coming up the following month of the 84th 84th Infantry, which is who liberated her. And I called, there was a contact number. I called him, and he listened to what I wanted and said, chances are you're not going to find anybody at this late date. You know, this is 17 years ago. This all happened 76 years ago.
Yeah.
So, no, 78 years ago, excuse me. So I said, well, if I write a letter, would you post it on the wall of the reunion? He said, absolutely, and that's what I did. Sent him a letter looking for one of the soldiers that was there at Zalswedel. A couple of weeks go by. On a Sunday morning, I get a phone call, and it's from this guy. He says, hi, my name is Max Lieber. You don't know me, but you wrote this letter. And so help me, that's as far as he got before I just froze. It was like, this isn't possible. And I had to put my husband on the phone to finish the conversation. I was so in shock. So Max Lieber lived in New Mexico, couldn't wait to jump in the car to come meet Mom. But I foolishly thought to myself, I want to surprise her with this. You know, imagine surprising her with this. And that's how it was going. My son, who lived in New York, was coming. My daughter, at that time, she may have been in New York too.
All my
Yeah.
children.
All her children and grandchildren. And we made up this phony thing that everybody was coming in because it was somebody's birthday and we were making a big party and all that.
Nice.
So, day before, Frank says to me, hey, Rach, do you really think it's a great idea to surprise let me see, how
I was
old are you?
82 by then.
80-year-old. 80 with, at that point, she had 8 heart stents.
Oh, good.
Now she has
grief.
9. Yeah. But he says,
Oh my goodness!
I know.
You just
Nobody can.
keep going with the miracles here.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So it hit me like a ton of bricks. This man is right.
Yeah.
This could just kill her.
Yeah.
So everybody gathered at Mom's apartment in Phoenix, and there was a terrace, and we're all out on the terrace. And my son and his son, who was 3, my daughter with her daughter, who was 2, are out there, and the kids are playing on the floor of the patio, and Mom is having the time of her life. She can't keep away from kids. I mean, they just, yeah. So I'm going to tell her. I'm like, Mom, yeah. I said, I have to talk to you about something. She's like, look how cute they are. Mom, I couldn't
break her attention away from the kids.
Finally, I had to yell. And she looks at me and says, what? I said, you remember that soldier you always wanted to meet? And she says, yeah. Oh, my God. Did you see what he just did? I'm like,
Still not tracking what's
not tracking
what's
that.
about to happen.
Right. I said, well, he's coming tomorrow. I actually have a picture of her face as it dawned on her. My husband snapped a picture.
Nice. Good timing.
I know. And the first words out of her mouth was, tomorrow? Yes. We don't have any food in the house.
That's a Jewish mother for you.
Yeah, a good hostess.
Yeah. She had to-
So then you ended up meeting Max Lieber.
Right, and we became the best of friends. He came to Phoenix, we went to New Mexico, and one day we're sitting at the in living room and socializing, and he looks at me and he says, Esther, do you like honey? I says, not anymore. He says, I know why. You're the honey girl.
Yeah.
And that's
And he
how
remembered.
my documentary is called Honey Girl.
Wow. Now, is he was part of the group that actually,
Yeah, he shut open the gate.
he's the guy that shot the gate open
Yeah,
to let you guys out when you'd been stuck for 2
Right.
weeks.
right.
Wow. Do you eat honey now?
I mean, I don't dislike it.
You do like it then?
Well, the only time I really eat honey when it's Passover, you have to take a piece of matzah. You know what matzah is?
Mm-hmm.
And dunk it in the honey.
Mm.
For years I couldn't do it, but now I do it.
Nice.
Now I can.
Wow. Okay, so let me see if there's anything else I have in my notes here. I wanted to ask you about justice, your relationship to justice. Because we talked about forgiveness, and you seem pretty clear on what it is to forgive somebody and why you do it.
Yeah.
But how do you relate to justice? Because what happened to you and to all those other people
Well,
is so unjust.
I agree that it's very unjust, but it's not it was not up to me. I could do nothing about it. So I just take life the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't
We feel
help,
like we're doing our bit. That's how we feel.
So what you're doing by going and telling your story and sharing all this is the best you can do
yes,
in the direction
so
of justice.
that people should never forget.
But
Yes.
you should know that she has impacted thousands of people. Our
Yes.
very favorite audience are high schoolers
Yeah,
because they're like sponges,
Mhm.
and they're our future. They're the decision makers. So impacting on them means the world to us. But also troubled kids. We spoke 2 weeks ago at the juvenile detention center.
Oh,
Yeah.
over here.
Mhm. In
Okay.
Nevada, we spoke to a school
that I'll never forget.
of children high schoolers that were in this high school, which was,
Juvenile delinquents.
yeah, it was very guarded, and it was the kind of place where the judge gave them the choice of either there or jail.
Mm.
So it was a lot of hardcore
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
they just melted.
I
under
never
Mom's.
forget it.
Yeah.
When I got to the school, the teacher tells me, Mrs. Basch, we don't know how these youngsters behave, but if they'll misbehave, you just take them out. I says, I'm a tough cookie.
Yeah, there's probably not a lot they
Sure
could do that would
enough.
bother you.
Sure enough, the way they listened in awe,
Yeah.
with tears in their eyes.
You know,
And when I
piercings,
finished-
face tattoos. I mean,
Yeah,
and they're just
yeah.
You just cracked them open,
Right,
didn't
and
you?
when I finished my story, they came to me to hug me and to thank me.
Yeah.
And the teacher looks at me and says, we never heard a thank you word from these youngsters till you showed up.
Yeah.
And that really warms my heart.
I have a theory about that.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of troubled, not just teens, but people in general, all seem to perceive themselves to be victims. Right?
Okay.
Who did this? You know, your teachers, your parents did this. Society did this.
Yeah.
Not my fault. But this is why I keep taking drugs, you know?
Yeah.
And then they see a true and honest victim standing in front of them who is as free as a bird
Yeah.
in every way. And they're just moved to tears.
Yeah. Yeah, you can be a victim for real, or you can have the mentality of victimhood, which is a
absolutely.
totally different thing.
Completely.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought
Completely.
that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, I have two other main questions for you.
sure.
And one of them is a tough question because it's a sensitive subject, and I mean, you're a tough cookie, so it's probably not that big a deal to you. But you know, there's a lot of people that either claim that this never happened, that the Holocaust never took place, and
And this is why I'm going all over the country to speak.
yeah, and just to
Enlighten
present the
them.
evidence, really.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I tell the audience all the time, our job is to bring you a history lesson.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
And your job is when faced with someone saying this never happened, you can tell them about meeting Mom and what it did for you.
Yeah.
That's your job.
Yeah.
Our job's to tell, your job's to listen and pass it on.
Yeah, yeah, and about preserving all this. Before I get to that, do you think that something like this could ever happen again?
Well, I can't guarantee. I'm just hoping it'll never happen again.
You and me both.
In a
Yeah.
heartbeat. It could happen in a heartbeat. There's
Especially
so
in
many of the same thought processes, just you can see them everywhere.
Yeah,
And like I said, all we can do is our part. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah. Unchecked power
Unchecked
is
power.
running rampant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you were gonna make a documentary, but what are you doing now instead?
Something very exciting. We're
hologram.
making,
The hologram.
I'm a
in
little.
about 2 weeks, a group is going to come from Shoah, which is it's the museum in Washington. It's
Holocaust
Shoah- It's a
museum.
Holocaust.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have done a few of these holograms. Most people think of holograms as what's on your credit card now, like a three-dimensional.
Oh, like more like a
image.
watermark.
But this is completely different.
Yeah.
This is where she will be asked between 500 and 750 questions over a period of 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
All of that will be put in a database, in an accessible database. So I've sat in front of a hologram. Mom's not done yet, but there's one in the Plotkin Museum down in Phoenix. And you're sitting in this room, and there's a TV screen in front of you from floor to ceiling, or quite large. And this gentleman appears like he's waiting, and you have like a mouse or a remote, and you hold it down and you ask a question, And this image answers it because it's in their database, right?
So it's going to be like a pre-recorded history lesson,
it is
basically.
going to be forever.
Yeah.
It is going to outlive us all.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep saying it'll be there until the dinosaurs come back. I mean,
Now, who's coming up with all these questions? That's a lot of questions.
right. Well, they've done several of them, so it's not their first time in the rodeo.
Okay, so they already have a bank that they're pulling from.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, they also looked at some of Mom's talks and some of the things they feel is important. But it's going to be a lot of questions.
So there's a lot of general ones than some that are catered specifically to her.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
But imagine your grandchild learning about the Holocaust. I hope. And this image is on his computer of Mom,
Yeah.
and he just has to access it.
Well, if people don't learn about it like this, they're going to be learning about it in a whole different way,
Oh, I know.
unfortunately.
Believe me, I know.
Well, Miss Basch, thank you so much. It's been such an honor to talk to you.
Thank you
for
so
answering
much.
my questions. Thank you for braving the stairs. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to share with anybody?
Well, you see, I'm going to tell you how I met my husband, yeah? In September of 1945, the Czechoslovakian people decided to take their Jewish people home. They put me on a ship to Prague, the capital of Czechoslovakia, and from there they put me on a train to go to Budapest, to the capital of Hungary. When I got off the train, the only cousin that survived out of a family of 35 people was liberated by the Russians, and he came to Budapest every day to see who's coming home. And I got off the train. He was very happy to see me, but he says, Esther, no use for you to go home. Nobody survived. The Russians even took your house away, so you've nowhere to go. But we have an uncle in Palestine then, and I have a very good friend who's taking orphans towards Palestine. I'll introduce you to him, and he'll take you and help you find our uncle, and he'll take care of you. I was 17 years old, very naive. I didn't know nothing about the world, nothing. So I said, okay. He introduces me to his friend, and you know, at that time it was the tradition, where are you from, where are you from? And when he asks me where I'm from, I tell him the name of my town. He says, oh, I had a great uncle there. I says, who was your great uncle? And when he tells me the name, I fell in love with him right then and there. I was in awe of him because he was the saintest rabbi in town. My father, who was also a rabbi, took me every year, Erev Rosh Hashanah, to be blessed. And so when I heard that, I was in awe of him right away. Right away I fell in love with him. So we started, he was 23 years old then. He took 60 orphans upon himself to take towards Palestine.
You have to realize the streets were littered with orphans.
Yeah.
You know, people were lost
Yeah.
after the war. It's hard for us to imagine
Yeah.
the bedlam.
Yeah.
But he took these orphans hoping to get to Palestine. Now, that was a journey in itself. blown out tracks.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, it took them, what, a year to get there. And, but the family joke is that he was able to find homes for all of them except Mom's, so he decided to marry her.
That's wonderful. And how many children did you have?
I had 4.
You
but
had 4.
2 of them passed away
I'm sorry.
Recently. Last few
recently.
years.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
They were born 15 months apart, and they died 15 months apart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, you know, on behalf of anybody who agrees with me, essentially, I want to say I'm so sorry for what happened to you,
Oh, darling.
and thank you so much for sharing
you.
sharing
Thank
your
you so
story.
much.
Yeah,
Thank
it's,
you.
it's really
Do you
really
remember that she was saved for a reason?
yeah.
I believe that very strongly.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Well, you're living out that purpose right now, so thank you.
I believe very strongly in that.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Anytime if you want to come back and talk
Okay.
about anything, really, just let me know.
Sounds
So,
great.
all right. Well, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Esther. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Esther, but everybody calls me Mom, so you can call me Mom too.
You got it. I will. Thank you.